Welcome to part 5. In this section, we will be talking about the practice. In part 5a, we will talk about the Eightfold Path with special attention to right view or right understanding. And then we will take a look at some aspects of liberation. So we know that liberation from dukkha is the liberation from the sense of self. From our study of the law of dependent arising, we saw that the sense of self is a dependently arising phenomenon. And then from the study of the Four Noble Truths, we know that the reason for dukkha is our attachment to the five aggregates and taking them to be me and mine. So we know that if we can be free from these attachments, we can be free from dukkha. But how do we accomplish that? We can't accomplish this by forcefully trying to reduce these attachments or changing the environment or using some other artificial methods, because those would be only temporary and we would not be getting to the root of the cause. The Buddha offered a permanent solution to dukkha. So for the liberation from dukkha, or the liberation from the sense of self, he said there is only one method, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path, and that starts with right view. Right view or right understanding is the start of the Noble Eightfold Path. So when you have right understanding, becoming free from attachments happens naturally. It is not something that needs to be forced. All right, so when right view is established, all the other factors on the path get set in motion. So here we have right view and right thought or right intention that belong to the wisdom component, or panya in Pali. Then we have right action, right speech, and right livelihood, which belong to the virtue component or morality component, that is sila in Pali. And then we have right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration that belong to the serenity or concentration component that is known as samadhi in Pali. Okay, now let's look at the practice in a nutshell. So the practice can be summed up into these 3 lines. Refrain from the unwholesome. The unwholesome is that which is harmful to you and others. So one should refrain from unwholesome actions by body, speech, and mind. Then engage in what is wholesome. So wholesome things are that which are not harmful to you and others. These are beneficial to you and others. Actions by speech, body, and mind that are beneficial to you and others are wholesome actions. And cultivate your mind to see things as they are. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. Now we know that this is the dispensation of Gautama Buddha, and all Buddhas that arose before him and all those who will arise in the future will have this same message. They will discover the law of dependent arising and declare it to the world and say, come and see, this is what is happening. And then people will hear this, understand this, and follow the Noble Eightfold Path, and they will become liberated. All right, so I want to say something about cultivating your mind. How do we cultivate our mind? So we know that our mind is trained to buy into that subject-object duality and to live under the impression of me and my world. So cultivating our mind is to now do the opposite, to train the mind to do the opposite, to see the dependently arising nature of things with your sensory experiences. So this is why right effort is placed in the cultivation of the mind part of the Noble Eightfold Path. And very briefly, I'll tell you what right effort is all about. It is to prevent unrisen, unwholesome states from arising and to abandon already arisen, unwholesome states. So anytime you have bought into that subject-object duality, that illusion, unwholesome states are arising or have arisen. And then cultivating unarisen wholesome states and further developing already arisen wholesome states. So when you are being mindful and bringing to mind this dependently arising nature of phenomena, and you make that your practice, then these factors of right effort are being practiced. So the Buddha said to strive to accomplish these four things with right effort. All right, so we know that liberation is liberation from the sense of self, and it starts with right view. So before we talk about in detail what right view is, let's have a look first at the views that were held about self during the time of the Buddha. So there were two views that were prevalent at that time, and one was where people had the eternalistic view, where they held the view that there was a permanent self that existed in an afterlife, which was either favorable or unfavorable, depending on the moral actions of the person. So the favorable and unfavorable conditions of the afterlife were dependent on moral consequences. Then on the other end, there were people who had this view. They held a nihilistic view, which was that at the end of this life, that was it, and there was no permanent afterlife. And so they didn't worry about moral consequences and thought they could get away with anything. So we have the Buddha's discovery of the law of dependent arising and the sense of self being a dependently arising phenomena in the presence of ignorance, which with each instance conditioning the next, and so on. As long as ignorance was there, we had the sense of self arising. And once ignorance was eliminated, the sense of self would not arise. So this was a dependently arising and passing phenomena that was associated with the sense of self. That is associated with the sense of self. And then because this is a dynamic process, the individual had the ability to override unfavorable and favorable consequences of moral actions by current intentional actions. Now let's get back into talking about right understanding. Now there are two levels of the Eightfold Path, one at the mundane level and one at the supramundane level. Now this level is what is needed for liberation. Let's have a look at right view in these levels. First, we will talk about the lack of right view. So here we have a person that has no understanding of moral consequences and does whatever he or she pleases because this individual does not have an understanding that moral consequences are linked to their intentional actions. This person has no right view and lacks right view. Then we have another person who has an understanding of moral consequences and is likely to refrain from unwholesome actions and engage in wholesome actions, generating favorable conditions for him or herself. And this is a good thing, but this is not enough for liberation. But because this person has generated favorable conditions, this person has the potential to come in contact with the Dhamma and to hear about the law of dependent arising and get some insight into this understanding of self, that it is only a notion, it's only a concept. So if that happens and this person gains an understanding that self is only a notion, then this is a huge breakthrough. This person now gains this understanding because now he has the right view on the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the start of the Noble Eightfold Path. So this person gains an understanding that self is only a notion. And this person is known as a stream winner and is guaranteed liberation at some point. This is an irreversible change. And now what happens is that this person continues to live with the notion of self, and he knows that it is only a sense or a concept, this sense of self, and the sense of self will keep arising as long as there is ignorance. Ignorance is still there, but this person now works to become free from this notion. And we'll go through two other stages before becoming completely free from the notion of self. This person gains freedom from the notion of self, and this person is a fully enlightened person. So ignorance has been completely eliminated. There is no trace of ignorance in this fully enlightened person. So as you can see here, there is 100% wisdom here and 100% ignorance here, 0% ignorance here, and 100% ignorance here. So this is a process of perfecting one's wisdom or perfecting one's right understanding, as I have indicated with the shades of gray. And this enlightened person, when there is no trace of ignorance, sees things as they really are. The five aggregates are seen for what they really are. They are not taken to be me or mine. If we look at our 12-factor formula again for dependent arising, so when ignorance has been eliminated without a trace, when mental formations prepare the five aggregates, they are not mistakenly misinterpreted as a self and a world around the self. So there's nothing to cling to, nothing to crave, because that sense of self doesn't arise. And then craving is gone, clinging is gone, becoming is gone, and the birth of a sense of self is gone. And because the sense of self doesn't arise, then illness, sorrow, decay, death, and none of these things have any impact on this individual, because now dukkha has been eliminated and this individual abides without any mental pain. Wisdom has been perfected, and now an enlightened person doesn't mean this person will not succumb to bodily pain, illness, or death. The organic processes of the body will continue till this person lives out the lifespan. They will not have any mental pain and will be abiding in a state without mental pain. So, because these individuals are not functioning on this subject-object duality concept, or that understanding anymore, they don't have that illusion of the subject-object duality. Whatever actions they perform do not supply fuel to the mental formations to generate that sense of self again and again, like it does for the worldling who is acting on that subject-object duality. So the momentum that drives the sense of self forward has been brought to a screeching halt in these individuals. So we are caught in the trap of an apparent reality. We are needlessly carrying a burden because we are not seeing things as they really are. So our mind is caught in a mind-interpreted world that appears to us as a world around a self. This is an apparent reality. So the practice then becomes to know that this is an apparent reality and have an understanding of the actual reality, which is that there is an interaction between these naturally occurring phenomena that are dependently arising and passing, and to see the five aggregates as they really are, this dynamic process in constant flux. So we know about the actual reality while living in the apparent reality. We'll talk more about the practice in the last part of part 5. This brings us to the end of part 5a. We talked about right view and liberation. I hope you will join me for the next part of part 5. Thank you.